At 8:15 in the morning, today the world was split in two. Today there was going to be a massive explosion, and what would explode was an atomic bomb over Hiroshima. That morning you woke up early, got ready, and just like every other day, you were going to head to work. But this could be the last morning you would ever see. It was August 6th, 1945. Your name was Kenji, and you were 34 years old. You woke up at 7. Your wife, Yuki, was cooking rice. You had one daughter, named Hana, 8 years old, and she was getting her school bag ready. You looked out the window for some fresh air. Shopkeepers were opening their stalls. People were walking by. The streetcars were running. Hiroshima, home to a population of 350,000 people, was a lively, bustling city. There was a Japanese military base there, but right now, all that mattered to you was the smell of your home, the sound of your wife's voice, and your daughter's smile. At 8 in the morning, you started walking to work, with no idea of what was about to happen. During the war years, Hiroshima had changed. The men of the city had gone off to the front lines, first to China, then to the islands of the Pacific, and then to places they never came back from. You worked at a factory. You were past military age, and because of an old wound in your leg, you were exempt from service. This was a stroke of luck for you, but it also made you feel guilty. Life in the city had grown harder. Meat was scarce, rice was scarce. In schools, children still studied, but living in shelters and practicing air raid drills had become part of their everyday education. Fear had become a part of life. In the middle of the night, the sirens would wail. The whole family would panic and drop to the floor, and everyone would hold their breath. For the people of Hiroshima, this had become a habit. But there was something else too. Hiroshima had never experienced a serious bombing. Compared to other places touched by the war, Hiroshima felt a little safer. That was exactly why, at 8 in the morning, people were still riding the streetcars to work, and why your daughter Hana could still go to school. And that hour had come. 8:15. You had no idea that directly above your head, at a height invisible to the naked eye, a B-29 bomber was moving at a speed of 600 kilometers per hour. This bomb weighed 4 tons and 400 kilograms. Pilot Colonel Paul Tibbets was steadily guiding the plane forward, while the bombardier, Major Thomas Farabee, was looking down through the bomb sight. His target was the Aioi Bridge, right in the heart of Hiroshima, an easily recognizable T-shaped structure. The city had been circled on the map, and your home was inside that circle. That day, there were no clouds. Hiroshima lay clear and visible below. Bombardier Farabee took aim. At first, you heard no sound. You only saw a light. It was an intensely white light, the whitest, purest, and most merciless light you had ever seen in your life. You closed your eyes, but it made no difference. The light was already everywhere. Then a wave hit. Within seconds, a bomb had detonated 580 meters above the Aioi Bridge. The bomb turned into a fireball that could reach temperatures of millions of degrees, and the shockwave leveled the city. Concrete buildings that were never meant to fall crumpled like paper. Trees were ripped out by their roots, and streetcars were thrown off their tracks. The center of Hiroshima, a city of 350,000 people, turned into a wasteland within seconds. That morning, you were lucky, if you could call it luck, because your workplace was a little outside the city center. The blast knocked you to the ground. Your ears rang as if you'd gone deaf. Blood ran down your arm, but you managed to get back on your feet. You rushed back toward the city, but what you saw on the way burned itself into your soul. People were stumbling back and forth in panic, but this was no ordinary walking. Their hands were torn off, their legs were gone, pieces of their bodies were falling away, and they could not see, because they no longer had eyes. Later, you would learn something. The sheer shock of that moment was what kept many of these people on their feet at all. In that instant, they were caught somewhere between life and death. You called out for your daughter. You called out for your wife, but you could not find them. You ran to your daughter's school and were met with a horrifying sight. The school had been reduced to ashes, with nothing left but piles of stone. You sat down, you wept, you cried out in pain, but there was nothing you could do, no solution within your reach. Now let me tell you something. Stop and think about this. 140,000 people lost their lives. What do these numbers make you feel? What was this really the result of? The center of Hiroshima vanished within just a few seconds of the bomb's detonation. More than 50% of the city was reduced to ruins. Everything within several kilometers of the blast site was flattened, and concrete buildings that were supposed to be indestructible turned to ash. This was the great agony the war inflicted in that moment. But then something else happened too. Black rain. So what was this black rain? The explosion had hurled radioactive particles into the upper layers of the atmosphere, and within hours those particles fell back over the city like a greasy, oily rain. People burning with thirst drank from puddles in the streets, but there was something they didn't know, something they had no way of knowing. The water they were drinking was death itself. For those who survived, the war was not over. It had only changed its shape. So why Hiroshima? Why did that bomb fall on Hiroshima? In 1941, Japan had drawn the United States into the war with a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. There had been no declaration of war, no warning, just 353 aircraft striking in the early hours of the morning, and thousands of American soldiers losing their lives. Naturally, as a result, America had to respond. For 4 years, the islands of the Pacific had changed hands one by one through battle after battle. The Japanese would not retreat. They kept fighting. They never surrendered. They fought until death. Both America and Japan calculated that this war would drag on for years. America would have to launch an invasion of Japan, and they calculated that this would result in millions of deaths. A decision was reached. President Truman made a calculation, a cold, ruthless calculation. He calculated that if Hiroshima was not bombed, millions of people would die in a war that would drag on for years. But if the bomb was dropped, perhaps hundreds of thousands would die, and the war would end. He was working out the plan for it, and Truman had made the heaviest decision in history. In the heat of August 1945, a bomb fell on Hiroshima, and 3 days later, Emperor Hirohito spoke on the radio for the first time, announcing surrender, and the war was over. This was the side of the war that led to the bomb being dropped on Hiroshima. As for you, you never found your daughter. Months later, you found your wife alive in a basement in another part of the city. But within 2 years, she too lost her life to an illness that was never fully understood. Radiation had now begun to kill people. Hiroshima was rebuilt. Despite reports claiming that for 75 years nothing would grow there again, months later, people returned to their city and rebuilt it with their own hands. Among the rubble, in the midst of the ashes, flowers began to sprout once again. The oleander, Hiroshima's official flower, bloomed again right in the middle of the ruins. Only one structure remained standing, Hiroshima's great building, the Hiroshima Prefectural Industrial Promotion Hall. This building withstood the force of the blast, and it was later named the Atomic Bomb Dome. It was never torn down. It had to remain standing, because today, this structure is what allows us to remember. Just as I said at the beginning of this video, in a city, the streetcars were running, children were heading to school, a breakfast table was being set, someone was walking to work, someone was looking out a window, and then suddenly, the world was split in two. And ever since that day, humanity has been trying to live in a world divided into two halves. In one half were the people who had seen that light. In the other half were the people trying to understand what that light truly meant. Which half of this divided world are you standing in? Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like me to tell the story of another historical event next, leave it in the comments. And if you subscribe to my channel, I'll be even happier. Take care and stay safe.